I think it's all done. Hello. Welcome to Job Interview Red Flags for Employees live stream. I apologize for the slight delay. I had a slight issue with a technical issue which I needed to overcome. But I'm really glad that you've joined me in for these interview tips and recommendations. These are important so you won't end up working in a bad environment. Many times a job seems like a perfect fit to us. We check a job description, we look up the company, everything looks good, but once we accept the job, the reality can be really far from what's initially been promised. So how can we ensure that we don't end up in such place? How can we ensure that we won't end up in a negative atmosphere in a possibly toxic workplace? Well, we actually can't, but we can definitely minimize the chances of ending up in such an awful position if we look out for these certain signs. Now, the mentioned signs, the signs that I'm going to mention, are translating into red flags immediately, meaning that the company and the job are not a good fit for you. Just in case, let me just check a few things. If we haven't met before, I'm Marat from EMMOTION, HR and career consultant. Look me up on LinkedIn. And on this channel, I contribute to your professional growth, such as to acing your job interviews, to gaining confidence as a professional, and learning to deal with corporate politics the best way. Make sure you say hello in the chat, please. I'll be saying hello right back. As I said, I had some technical difficulties with the live stream in the past as well. So please, 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 if it all works fine, if you see me well, if you hear me well, please give the video a thumb up and reassure me that there are no issues with the stream. Hello, right back. I see Marie. Hello, Atsa. Good to see you guys. As I said, I'll also respond to your questions which you've submitted, and make sure you leave questions during the live stream as well. I'll read them, I'll answer them before the stream is finished. So as I said, since I've coached many companies and professionals, I've sat on both sides of the interview table, and I worked in corporate recruitment and in consulting for years. I'm going to share with you 8 major red flags in interviews which you should be staying away from, and you should be staying away from the employers where these red flags are manifesting at. Spotting a bad employer can actually help you out, because a bad quality employer can really be a toll on your career and even on your emotional health. Which is why I always tell to candidates, you are not the only one who is being interviewed. During your job interview, you should also be gathering as much information about the company as possible, so you won't end up in a wrong place, as I said. In fact, some of the best candidates that I've had, some of the best candidates that I've interviewed, and most of them I've actually hired, they had a lot of questions during the interview. They asked me a lot of questions. They were interacting with me through the whole interview. So sometimes, due to certain circumstances, some candidates decide to go ahead and to accept the job even if they see some obvious red flags. This is because there is a worry that they might not get another job. They are actually being pressured by their financial situation. So, of course, they immediately regret that decision, because shortly after, they are back into the job market, searching for the job again, but their confidence is completely shaken. They are actually doubting their skills and capabilities because having experienced a bad working environment, having experienced a toxic work environment, makes you doubt all of your strength, makes you doubt your professionalism and self-worth. So please be aware, and if you see these red flags, don't go ahead, don't accept this job offer. Okay, the first major red flag is when your first impressions were negative. Whether you are interviewing online or in person, pay attention to how the employee interacts with you and with each other. If you are visiting their offices, are you greeted nicely by the reception? If you are able to look around and see if you see any people in the meeting rooms, take the note of the atmosphere that you see in the building. What does the environment feel like to you? Do the employees feel happy? Do they seem happy and energized? Do you think they are comfortable being there, talking to each other? If you do see that, that's actually good. But if all you see are tired faces and no one is smiling, this is actually quite the opposite. If they're all looking miserable, this is a definite red flag. From the way you were greeted to the first interactions that you've witnessed between the employees, you should be looking for happy and energetic people that are friendly and comfortable. If that is not what you are seeing, this is definitely a red flag. Number 2 is when the interviewer is late or underprepared. This is actually something that happens to many people, and I've already explained that in one of my videos, one of my previous videos related to the subject. I've experienced something very clear, a clear red flag. This was actually a major company, a well-known and well-established brand, which is, you would be surprised to hear how unprofessional they came across. But the HR director, it was actually the vice president of HR, she was late. She was about 25 minutes late. She hasn't acknowledged this. She hasn't apologized about this. In fact, I've let the recruitment company the executive search company that were in touch with me, I've let them know that I was waiting, that I was scheduled for a Skype interview, and I was waiting for her on Skype, but there were no signs, no call, no email, nothing. So after 25 minutes, there was no apology either, and she just started the interview as if nothing has happened, and she was obviously never really. She hasn't looked through my resume. She didn't know anything about my background, and on top of that, I felt that it was the way that she started the questions. It was all disorganized. I felt that this was definitely not the right environment to be at, because she was so distracted, and she was actually distracting me as well. As the position didn't feel clear, because it was something that the recruitment company explained to me and something that I've seen as a job description. But once she started explaining the role, I've seen some of the differences that immediately rang a bell, and I thought, okay, this doesn't feel right. They are actually changing the job position and the job description during the interview. And if they are doing this, if the job description doesn't correspond to what they relate and to what they explain during the job interview, this means it's an obvious red flag. It means also they are not well organized. So I finished the interview. It was actually quite short because I wasn't really impressed by the company, and I didn't really want to proceed further. So I honestly told the recruitment company that I was not interested in the role. And it's curious that this person, the person that interviewed me, is not working there anymore. In fact, I've seen that the person that they hired for the position as well is not working there anymore either. So, needless to say, this is definitely a red flag. When the interviewer is unprepared, when they show up late, when the job description doesn't really correspond to what they are telling you during the interview, run away, because it's not going to bring you anything positive. Of course, companies are people that are working in the company are people too. So they are expected to make some mistakes. They are expected to have certain incidents, and things happen. They can run late, and it's completely understandable, but not acknowledging it and not apologizing for it and taking it for granted, taking your time for granted. When the manager and leaders are not really showing any value to your time, this may be part of their workplace culture. And if it's part of their workplace culture, then this is not the place for you to be at. Number three, the sign number three, in fact, this is becoming more and more common, is when the interviewers ask you inappropriate or even illegal questions. Okay, you might think, okay, what does it mean? What does the illegal question mean? There are many, some of the interviewers are not aware of it, but there are many questions which are completely illegal to ask during the job interview. Of course, you can't really run away and report it right in the middle of the interview, but this is definitely a red flag, and this needs to ring a bell. This means that you should be aware. You should be aware of this place, that this is not going towards a positive ending. Of course, the questions like that, let's say illegal questions, vary from country to country, but the common inappropriate and illegal questions usually include those related to age, to gender, to religion, to marital status, to sexual orientation, to health status, or other topics that are completely irrelevant to your qualifications and to how you perform your duties on the job. Of course, certain questions can be considered illegal because they can lead the interviewer to discriminate you as a candidate. For example, if you are asked if you are married, an interviewer immediately might jump into a conclusion that you wouldn't be able to travel as much, or you wouldn't be willing to travel as much. So this means an immediate discrimination. And the same goes to other questions, other areas that I mentioned. They are areas which should be avoided during the job interview. So if the interviewer is actually asking you related questions, not a good sign. So the basic rule is knowing, for you to understand whether the question is illegal, whether the question is appropriate or not, is directly link it to your job. Does this question have anything to do with your work skills or with your experience? Or is this question related to the job you're applying for? If it's not related, to either one, then it means that responding to this question might influence on the interviewer's personal opinion on you, and that means the chance for a possible discrimination. So, I would give you an advice on how to handle inappropriate or even illegal questions, at least during the job interview. Of course, some of these questions can be asked due to the interviewer not being prepared or the hiring manager not being properly trained regarding the questions to avoid. So you can either ask the interviewer, why is this question relevant to this job? is this question relevant to the company or to the job? You can ask this question right back and see how they respond. At the same time, you are able to go ahead and to say, I prefer not to answer this question, which can lead to some awkwardness, but if you are not going to go ahead and to proceed to accept an offer from this company, you shouldn't care. Number 4, the sign number 4. This is also quite common. The sign number 4 is when the employer is speaking badly of the former employees. If they speak badly, if they complain about the previous employees, that something along the line like the guy that was working in this position really did an awful job or screwed things up, or we've had an employee that quit and they actually done us a favor. Some of the candidates that I've worked with mentioned this to me, and I was completely surprised that because the interviewer might think that they are telling you something to break the ice, to establish a positive environment, or to actually say something to make you feel better, to let you know that you can be a different candidate, that you wouldn't leave or that you wouldn't act like a previous person, but in fact they are doing something completely the opposite because it reflects very poorly on them. The same goes when the expectations of the job, the expectations they have, the expectation that the employer has is not aligned with the salary that they offer. This is another clear red flag. So the red flag number 5 is actually quite common. When you read a job description and they are asking for the level of experience or responsibility which is far superior to what they are willing to pay. They don't want to pay a lot of money, but they want a lot of responsibility to be added to this position, or they want the top employee for the position which is a very low paid position. And you understand that their expectations are unrealistic and unreachable. They are looking for years of experience and the responsibility twice as big as what you previously had in your previous position, but they are offering you half of the money that you used to earn or that you are currently having in your position. This means that the bad quality employers are bad for a reason. They are usually not willing to pay a fair market wage and a fair market salary. They expect bad employers, they expect too much in return for very little, for little compensation, for little benefits. Sometimes they even promise huge bonuses, and when they offer you a huge bonus and some amazing extras, but they mention what you need to do to achieve that, and you clearly see that it's unrealistic. This means that you will need to sacrifice your personal time. You will need to sacrifice even your health in order to reach these possible bonuses, possible extras. It immediately means that your work-life balance is going to be off charts. It's not going to bring you the work-life balance that you want. So this means, especially in certain environments, you can see it's a big company. It's actually a well-established company, but they have a certain department which they use, let's say, with a very low paid salaries. It means that get ready for being micromanaged. Get ready to poor communication and to high levels of stress. I can guarantee you that the best idea would be moving towards another role. Another sign would be when they mention working hard a lot. Sign number 6. You know, at some interviews, it's quite curious that they like to make sure that working hard is mentioned many times. Sometimes they even say during the interview, some people or some employees, they don't know how to work hard and they don't appreciate all the opportunities that the company is giving to them. Not a good sign. This means that when they mention that the company values hard work, it might be the way this interviewer is trying to tell you, trying to let you know that the kind of work balance that you are going to have, which means long working hours, not equal to productivity. Some companies still don't get it. Some companies still don't get that all the employees, no matter what is your department, no matter what kind of job you do, you need for the best productivity, you need to have a certain work-life balance. You need to control your levels of stress. If you don't do that, if the hard work is really hard work, this may be an overworking culture and you don't want to join there. Number 7, the sign number 7, I think it's quite interesting because it can tell you a lot of things about the company. When there is a high turnover in the company, it immediately means that this is something concerning. It usually means that no matter why the turnover is there, no matter what is the reason for the turnover, most of the times this is not a good news. This is not a good news for a new employee. It's it's good to understand why people are leaving, but it's not uncommon for the turnover to occur when there are significant changes within the company. For example, if there are leadership changes, if there is a new CEO in the company, if there is a strategic shift that the company does, it's completely normal that there is a turnover during a certain time, during, let's say, 1-2 months, but when the turnover is constant, this means that people are not staying in the position for a long time, and this screams a red flag, because good companies don't burn their employees so often, so the employees give up and leave. Good roles are not usually given up so easily. That's not a good sign. I always recommend checking the Glassdoor website. Some of you might know what it is, but if you haven't taken a look on the Glassdoor website, you might need to. That's where most of the employees, current, previous employees, leave comments about the companies and leave an employer review. So usually, of course, if the employee has taken time to go online and to explain their experience, if they taking time and energy to do that, this might mean that you would need to take it with a pinch of salt. Some of the reviews is because the employee was so frustrated that they needed to let it out and to tell their experience in a negative way, obviously. But when you see that the Glassdoor reviews are actually, when there is something common through all the Glassdoor reviews, they are definitely saying, for example, if they say that this company highly micromanages you and that you never receive your bonuses, that achieving a bonus, achieving an extra pay is actually impossible. That means that this is a cultural thing that the company has. If there is a common pattern in the Glassdoor reviews, this means that no matter what you do, you won't be able to change this place. So try to dig out as much as possible during the interview. Try to ask the company about their turnover as well. If you've read some Glassdoor reviews, you can actually ask this during the job interview, and you can tell them, you can be honest that you've read some Glassdoor reviews, and you are wondering why the company has such a high turnover when you are given an option to ask them questions, of course. And you can immediately see what kind of reactions they have. You can immediately see how comfortable they are with the response. If they play a blame game, or if they actually acknowledge that they've had a certain changes within the company that immediately affected on their turnover rate, and that the turnover rate went up for a certain time, but it is all in the past, and that the company is doing much better right now. So this means that the employer is actually trying to sell you the position and trying to explain you that don't worry, the high turnover period is over. But if it's not like that, if you can see that they are actually hiding something, then this is a definite no-no. And finally, the sign number 8, I think, how many of you actually experienced, how many of you have had their gut feeling saying something, and sometimes we listen to it, sometimes we don't. In this case, when your gut feeling says no, this is another sign. We can try to convince ourselves, we can try to convince ourselves that the opportunity is good, that the company can have a certain negative aspect, but it's not that bad, and we try to convince ourselves that the job is actually a good opportunity, that we won't be able to find something similar. Stop, because if the interview experience is bad, if your gut feeling is telling you no, your job experience is going to be even worse. Imagine, as I said, employers are usually on their best behavior, just like an employees, just like the candidates. They are on their best behavior during the interview. If the interview process is bad, if the recruitment process is giving you a negative vibe, a negative feeling, move forward towards the next project, because ending up in a toxic workplace will only slow down your career advancements. Actually, a toxic workplace, a bad workplace, can throw you back in your career and can throw you back in years. To be able to recuperate, to be able to get to the stage where you are now, you would need a certain time and certain effort to get back on your feet. So listen to your gut. Listen to if your gut says no way, no matter how impressive the job title is, no matter how much money they are willing to pay you, go ahead and reject this offer. Now, these are the 8 signs which I wanted to share with you, and now I would like to proceed to the job interview related questions which you've submitted, or to the topic related questions which you've submitted. Let me start. I see that there are Marcus said hello. Rustam, good to hear. I'm Noris, Vasilis, Aliyah, Atsa, great. I have some more questions on here, so let me first go ahead and respond to the questions which are submitted. The question is hopping from one job to another still has a stigma attached to it? It's actually a good question. You might actually know that hopping from one job to another is not a good sign for employers. When the employee is changing jobs very often, this is not considered a good sign. But things are actually changing. It doesn't mean that you should be changing your job every other month, but if you had, for example, 3 different experiences in 5-6 years, This is considered quite normal because the model, the model has changed. The employee model, employment model has changed. Years ago, it was if you switch jobs too frequently, or if you switch jobs every 3-4 years, you are actually sending a bad message to your employer. But it's not really like that anymore. When people used to stay for 20 plus years to become a trusted individuals and a trusted collaborator within the company, that's not working the same way anymore. The new model is more based on when an employee is jumping on different positions every 3 years, for example, because they want to learn new skills, because they want to contribute, and they want to contribute some of their other skills, develop them, and then leave for something else. Of course, this also depends on your career goals, and because if you are truly a job hopper, if you are switching from one job to another very often, this means you can't really see a career path beyond, let's say, 1 year, which means you are sending an unstable message to your potential employer. It all depends on what exactly do we consider as a short period of time. Okay, the next question. The next question is on what are the obvious green flags during a job interview? Okay, you know, the green flags, the positive aspects when you are actually doing well during the job interview, it's when you are feeling comfortable during the interview, when the conversation flows easy with your potential employer. It feels that like you are understanding each other easily, and they are actually coming across as someone quite likable. I actually have a concrete video on signs that your job interview is going well, if you would like to check it out for a more complete answer. But let me give you a few. When the interviewer is interacting with you and is constantly interested in what you are saying, when they are selling the job to you, when they are actually explaining about what the company offers, the perks that you might have, anything that is sending a positive message to you, when you are also feeling comfortable within your company. This is all a positive and a green flag during the job interview. Okay, let me see. There is a question that some of the questions that are submitted already in here. Hi, how long do I have to wait before changing my job again? I recently started this job and it's not what I want. Okay, this is it's an interesting question, and it's quite common. If we started a job and we're not liking it, we're not enjoying it, it means you don't have to overthink it. You don't have to overthink and overanalyze how much time do you need before you can actually move to another position. Don't think that. Start searching for another job, because working in a company where you are not feeling comfortable, where the environment is not convincing, where you are actually coming to a job, coming to work in a negative state of mind, believe me, sooner or later, this is going to translate into certain health issues. At the beginning, it could be emotional health issues, but afterwards, it can even translate into physical health issues. So as I said before, don't wait. Start searching for another job. Don't think about job hopping, or don't think about negative impact that it might have if you switch from one job to another in a very short period of time. That shouldn't be your concern. Your concern should be your own well-being and your own safety, your own health. So don't think that there is a minimum of time that you need to let's say consider, and that you need to remain in the company for. That's not how it works. Okay, the next question would be, how should I report illegal and low salary internally in the company? This is actually quite good as well. Interesting question. You know, there are certain salary, there are certain wages which are stipulated by the law, and you should check the ones that are related to your job position and in your country. If you see that the job position offers, and if the wage which is being offered is lower than that, then you can definitely report this company. You can report them for not matching with the lowest wage which is accepted for this position, and you can even report the company for false advertisement when they are actually advertising a senior role, but what they are offering is a wage which is being given to junior candidates. So you can definitely report that. Okay, the next question is, I've been working in the company for 3 years. A new manager is impossible to work with. Should I try to change to another department, or should I just leave the company? I know what you mean, and I've actually been in this situation, so I can speak from experience. You should definitely try to move to another department first. But if that's not the case, if that's not working out, because depending on a company, that can be quite complicated. If the company is not big, if the structure isn't big, and you don't really have any other choice, the choice is either working with this kind of management, with a manager that is basically anything but helpful, or you are choosing to search for another role and to leave. I would advise to search for another role and to start looking as soon as you perceive the vibe that the manager is not really liking you or is not pleased with your work. When the message that they send, when they constantly send you a negative message, even with their body language, this means that you are not going to last for too long with such kind of manager. So go ahead and look for another opportunity. Believe me, it's going to save you a lot of hassle and a lot of negative emotions and a lot of negative, let's say, negative experiences in the company, because negative management, bad managers will bring you down. Bad managers will bring down your confidence, will bring down your self-worth. Of course, some of us are stronger than others in terms of emotional health, but it doesn't mean that even the strongest people can be affected. Even the strongest people can feel when every day, slowly, they are bringing your well-being down, when they are bringing your confidence down. This is definitely going to lead to negative consequences for you, first of all, because for the manager, it's a win-win situation. They will always be right unless you have unless you have a data which can support, let's say, some of your words, unless you can bring some facts on the table. Still, the HR within the company or the upper management within the company is going to support the manager always. So this is a no-win situation, as I said. I would advise for you to leave as soon as you can, but of course the best idea for you would be to leave having another job lined up. I hope it answers your question. If it doesn't, please go ahead and write me a continuation of a doubt that you might have. Okay, another question is, I've been asked, what is more important to you, money or success? How should I respond to this during the job interview? Okay, you should respond it being, you should give your response being completely honest. What is more important to you, money or success? If it's money, you should tell money. If it's success, then you should go ahead and respond this way. But you have to think, what do they want to know about you? Do they want to know, they are basically testing how important money is for you, or how important the success is for you. I think sometimes money is not as important. Of course, each person's situation is different, and I can completely relate to people that really need that paycheck. And of course, working in a company where you are not making enough money is not an option. But at the same time, you should think further, and you should look further. Sometimes companies can offer you huge amounts of money, but for a job which is a nightmare, for a job which is very complicated to deal with and to actually last in such companies. So I would say it's rather, you should rather look into a long-term or mid-term and see where do you want to be at. So if in that case, let's say it's more important for you to be in a comfortable, working in a comfortable place, enjoying your day-to-day job, and of course making money at the same time, then that should be the way that you would handle this question. Okay, any other questions? If you don't have any other questions, then I just want to thank you for staying with me. I appreciate very much your time, and I appreciate you being here. So if you are not subscribed yet, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Thank you very much for being here. To all of you, never give up. Atsa, Alia, Vasilis, I'm Noris, Rustam, Marcus, and Marie. I'm very happy to see all of you. Thank you very much for joining me in for today.